Oh, right. Oh, we have celebrity in the room. We have Richard Cook from Monzo. Hello. All right, let's get started. So, welcome everyone. In case you're wondering, yes, you're in the right place. And it's the first time we're doing something like this. Many of you know that I've been writing Salmon theory for about 7 years. But it's the first time I've decided to do a little event because, frankly, I was too cowardly to do it because I thought it was going to be shit. But it's not, and obviously, it's a testament to the guests more than the testament for whatever value I contribute. But it's happening, so here we are. Cool. I want to actually start before doing intros and stuff. I want to just get you all excited because it's Friday. It's probably been a long week, but I want you to warm up. Because just to kind of get us all excited for a little bit. I want you to write yes on the chat if you agree with this. I just want to get your gauge on a couple of sentiments. First one, social strategy gets overcomplicated. Yes. Okay. I'm loving the energy. I want you all to vent all the anger you have at how overcomplicated it is. Second one, social strategy gets too trend obsessed. Oh, we have exclamation marks. Yes, with multiple S, 125-page decks. All right, maybe. Oh, Richard, stop being a contrarian. Yes, 300. I love it. Last one, social strategy. Like Vito Corleone gets little internal respect at the beginning of The Godfather. Yes, totally. Hard RT. All right. I could just have these. I could just have like 50 of these slides and just keep getting people saying yes on the comments, and that would be a nice session. But that's not what we're gonna do. So, months of work that no one reads. Oh God, yes. And then a year later, they ask, so what's our strategy again? And they definitely didn't read it. Okay, good. Thank fucking goodness, because otherwise this would be a very awkward session. Those 3 sentences are probably underpinning the reason why I wanted to organize this with our fabulous guest, which I'll introduce in a minute. Because, and by the way, there's a solid amount of gifts here. If you are Gen Z and you don't like GIFs in presentations, I'm sorry, but I'm a millennial, and this is my love language, right? So that's that. We want to talk about how to avoid overcooking your team's social strategy, and because I think we can all agree that there's a lot of overcooking happening around, whether it's because we are asked to do it or because we think we have to do it, but it happens. And so what I want to get out of today, and what I want you to get out of today, is some practical advice to maybe help us do less overcooking so that things actually taste well by the time we're done. And to do that, of course, it's not just me talking whatever's on my mind. I actually asked around, and I got 4 fabulous speakers to basically share their expertise with us today. So Alexi, Pollyanna, Sheeza, and Jaskaran. I also want to shout out to Berk Genel, which you'll see there in the comments. He's been helping prep this session. He's been doing a lot of research and helping just make sure that we organize the best possible session for you. But I'm going to let our guests introduce themselves, maybe by order of how they're shown up on the slide. So Alexi, do you want to go first? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, I'm Alexi. I'm a Berlin-based independent strategist. After a decade working at agencies, including We Are Social, AKQA, working a little bit in-house as Zalando, I now currently run a cultural strategy consultancy and, like Rob, a newsletter called Idle Gaze, where the focus is all about uncovering and helping brands to navigate kind of like these subtle but very powerful undercurrents that shape, how we behave, how we feel, how we consume, and apply this to a variety of different disciplines. course social strategy. That's why we're here today, but also brand planning and trend forecasting. And yeah, just want to say, I'm super excited to be part of this panel.
I'll go next. Hopefully you can all hear me. This microphone is newly installed. So I'm Pollyanna, and I'm creative director at brand partnerships at Flight Studio. Many of you will probably know some of the podcast shows that we own and put out into the world. So probably our most famous one is Diary of a CEO, hosted by Stephen Bartlett. We also have a plethora of other shows, including Davina McCall's Begin Again. Paul C. Brunson, who you might know from Married at First Sight and Love is Blind, has a show with us, and there's 3 more coming down. Podcasting probably doesn't sound like it has a natural affiliation with social, but I have spent the last 10 years probably primarily in social roles, both paid, organic. I've spent the majority of my career actually in-house. I've also freelanced, done agency, and I think for me, something I really wanted to do was to go into the media side just to see how it was showing up differently. And yeah, I'm really excited today to share with you my thoughts, I guess, on social, along with these awesome other people on the call.
Hi everyone, I'm Sheeza. Like Pollyanna, I am both paid and organic, full kind of stack strategist. I try to look at a bird's eye view on how to work with clients to make sure that their social strategy achieves their wider objectives and it doesn't live in a bubble as it often can do. I worked with a number of brands in-house and agency, including Warner Brothers, Netflix, etc., in the entertainment space, and then a little bit in the FMCG space as well, like Caprison, Arla, etc. So I have a background across a mixture of industries.
Hi everyone, this is Jaskaran. I work as a freelance social media strategist, and I run a newsletter called The Social Juice. It's all about what happens in marketing and social media. I help brands with Gen Z consulting and how to navigate new platforms like Reddit. Not new, but new to many brands, how they can win on Reddit and TikTok, all these platforms. And I have worked in-house and agency also as a consultant and strategist. And I'm excited to talk about strategy, which I get a lot clinical about on everyday basis. Thanks.
Wonderful. I mean, while we're at it, Berk, do you want to introduce yourself? Because you've been part of making this happen as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm a freelance strategist. Been helping out Rob. Don't have as big of an intro as the rest of the crowd here, but yeah, glad to be a part of it.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I'm this person. My hair is a bit longer, and I have a mustache because it's Movember, and my partner hates it. But, you know, we can't have everything. And yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, I run a newsletter first and foremost called Salmon Theory, which is also now a community. Plug time. It's a little private community, which I'll talk more about at the end. And I have a discount code if you want to join it. Yeah, there you go. But I also started a company about 10 months ago called Salmon Labs, which is basically a strategy studio. I primarily do communications and content strategy, which involves social, but every now and then I get asked to do brand stuff as well, which I like, although I very much like to look at how to orchestrate communications because, yeah, just for some reason I prefer that part of the job more than the brand definition stuff itself. So that's me, and I actually have worked with a bunch of people in this call, including Alex Horton, who is now at ITV, and she's excellent, and she's now getting all red because I'm embarrassing her again. And I've also worked with Pollyanna in the past at VCCP, and yeah, plenty of other folks. There you go. I'll keep saying you're great, don't worry. So anyway, that's me. Right. We got to talk about this. Right, we got to talk about how these sentences are not helpful, especially because I don't know. I feel like, and by the way, no shade to any of these brands. They are all excellent in their own way. Oreo has managed to evolve quite well. Innocent have always been excellent. Monzo does great stuff, and they're now on Blue Sky. I just saw, so go follow them there. McDonald's is great, Specsavers is great, Duolingo is great, Ryanair is great, and Nutter Butter, I don't understand them, but I'm sure it's great. But you know, they're doing well. This is not a problem of the brands we reference. It's just the fact that most of these brands are not realistic comparison points to 90% of the work we do. So there you go. We should probably do a we should be more bingo, and then just go which brands are getting mentioned the most. That would be a nice little exercise for us to do. I think calling out these brands is like saying, hey, you know who's really good at content? You know who we should really emulate? Red Bull. And you go, great. Are you going to start a whole studio? No. Are you going to start a whole media company? No. Are you going to launch a magazine? No. Then you're not fucking Red Bull. I'm sorry. Or like saying, oh, you know who's great at storytelling? Apple. So they're great examples. They're just not realistic for 90% of cases. And I suspect they're not realistic for most of our brands. And I actually want to just talk about 3 harsh truths that I think, between stuff I've seen and conversations I've had with, including people that are on this panel. You know, I've spoken at length with Pollyanna about this because we've known each other for years. I actually met Sheeza the other week and we swapped notes about a bunch of these things as well. And I think there's 3 truths we all need to acknowledge. One is that not always, but oftentimes, many brands you might see are famous on social actually got famous despite social. What do I mean by that? If you say we should be more Specsavers, you need to caveat that with our brand should invest in a line for 30 years before it can start making jokes about it on Twitter, right? It's just impossible otherwise. The reason Specsavers can get away with just replying to a tweet where someone clearly misread a label with is because we all know that should have gone Specsavers has been a thing for 30 years. And so not a fair comparison for most brands. The other thing as well is I remember when I was at VCCP and I don't remember how I got hold of it, but someone told me that Ryanair had like, I'm going to butcher the number, but like 5 to 6 people just to run their social channels. And some of them were specialized in TikTok and some of them didn't do anything else. And that for me felt like quite an eye opener in the sense that we go, we should be more like Ryanair. I go, great. You know, they have more people running their TikTok than you have in your entire marketing team. Yeah. So volume and speed is also a function of resources, which was why, again, a lot of these brands are not useful comparison points because we need to be realistic about the resources we have and go from there. And almost like look at our references in the appropriate scale and not just look at like the people who have a dozen folks just doing socials. And then the third thing, which is also something that I think a bunch of us really struggle, is you can be distinct on social without being unhinged. There are other tones of voice, but a revelation, right? And so what I thought I'd do, or I thought we'd do, is we actually kind of banned referencing some of these brands for today's discussion. By the way, of course, we can talk about them, but it's not going to be the focus point. We actually spent some time looking at 5 under-discussed brands, as I would define them, although one of them is kind of cheating because it's curries. But I like to think we're going to talk about curries right at the moment where we're all realizing that curries are actually smashing it. So maybe it's not cheating at all. It's just going to be very heavily discussed from now on as well. I also thought we'd do something that I've always enjoyed seeing in some brand strategy circles, which is trying to almost like reverse engineer the strategy behind a piece of communications. So for example, if you've ever been to Julian Cole's webinars or Mark Pollard's, they do a lot of that reverse engineering of like, what do you think the brief was for this? I've never seen that done for social, so I'm going to try and do it. And then the last thing is we're all very focused as much as possible on bringing you practical stuff, not just platitudes. So if we start, I actually don't have it, but maybe I should have a little like one of those things that do a lot of like noise if someone says, for example, the word authentic. So that's a little word of warning for all of us. Don't say the A word. because you're going to lose brownie points. But there are practical things we can all learn, right? And these are all, Alexi, Sheeza, Pollyanna, and Jaskaran, they've seen a lot, they've done a lot. There are practical things you learn on the job. And that's the main thing I want to get out of this next hour is what are those practical ways of thinking about this stuff beyond just going, well, it depends if the brand, be entertaining. You go, yeah, I guess, but how? What types of entertaining, et cetera, et cetera. Before we do that, I just want to do a quick fire round. And so I want to ask each of our guests in 2024, what was the biggest social strategy lesson you've learned? And what was the shittest social strategy hot take you've seen? Alexi, do you want to go first?
Cool. Yeah, I'll start again. So, I mean, I think there's been like a lot of lessons this year, but I think if I had to pick one, as Rob mentioned, we're in an industry that's kind of addicted to speed and fleeting relevance at the moment. And in this industry, I think the one thing that's been most important is to really champion a sense of like meaningful substance. And I think what I'm trying to say here is that like if you go back to the key marketing fundamentals, the brands that have been able to drive the most meaningful differentiation, create the most interesting mental availability in the long run, have been the ones that have been able to connect to kind of a deeper need or motivation. Alex Zamora in the chat, he said, I think he framed it perfectly, which is like brands kind of really have to do the work to find their own kind of tone of voice. And I totally agree with that. And when it comes to these like deeper needs and motivations, like, yes, sometimes that desire is for unhinged chaos, this really carnal need for this. But I think there's only maybe space for one chaotic Duolingo bird on TikTok, possibly. However, like there's so many other unmet needs, right, on social that aren't being met and where brands can really step in. And so, I always love talking about, for every like Duolingo causing chaos, there's like an opportunity to actually, create digital rest stops and create a sense of calm in the feed. For every brand that's trying to like create, mass fame, there's actually really interesting opportunities to tap into very specific, niches and subcultures and drive belonging around them. So yeah, I think just like in short, like speed is such a curse at the moment in industry, and the remedy is to stop just running around like headless chickens and just find that one genuine, unique thing that your brand can stand for and really double down on that.
Cool. What's the shittest hot take you've seen?
Okay, so with the shittest hot take, I would say anything that involves a cheat sheet on how to game the algorithm. And I don't know if it's just me. I've been seeing so much like on LinkedIn, like these kind of like cheat sheets. And I've also been in so many meetings, especially this year, where a client will say, okay, can we please follow the Mr. Beast formula? And I passionately try to like push away from all this, not because, this stuff doesn't work, but there are kind of three key reasons I think why this just, I think it's just total bullshit, which is firstly, it really opens up, the brand to the whims of the social media companies, right? If you're just trying to pander to whatever formats and whatever unique, unique editing styles are working, it's a short-term game. Secondly, what it creates is like this culture where all the brands start to follow the same recipe, right? So whether it's Mr. Beast or even, like Diary of the CEO, and basically everyone starts to create the same content. And that oversaturation, it basically inflates engagement and is a losing game in the long run. And thirdly, it just kind of like sucks the soul out of the way that brands engage with their audience. When, they're just painting by numbers. I think it's kind of telling that Mr. Beast has kind of like stepped away from his own formula because, there's this realization that if you just do this again and again and again, it's going to have an adverse effect on the quality of that engagement with the audience.
Perfect. So don't just go Mr. Beast face on everyone's faces. Cool. Pollyanna.
Cool. So I think my biggest social strategy lesson doesn't really change every year. I think the main thing is that whatever you do on social, you need to reach as many people as possible to drive results. But to make it relevant, I guess, 2024, I think this was the year of LinkedIn. and social posts, if they made it onto LinkedIn, it suddenly was like a marker of you must be doing amazing. But just because you've made it on LinkedIn doesn't mean you've actually reached your audience. So again, like, to try and keep it practical, like, don't feel like just because you've not had your content go viral on LinkedIn from your TikTok doesn't mean that it's not done its job. And then Sheeta's social strategy hot take. I was toying between two, but I think the second one I'm going to stick with. So I think we're going to talk about the other one later. But I think there's this notion that brands need to build community. And I know that's probably, community for me is quite a heavy word. And I think there's lots of different meanings for it. But what I mean by that is that we kind of have to remember that brands don't take up space in people's minds as they do ours. The community already exists. You know, community is formed by the culture in which people operate, in which they experience, through the products they buy, the interactions they have, the people they speak with, and the people they hang out with. The brand role here is very much how can you boost or amplify or align, but brands do not build community. The community exists.
Wonderful. Thank you. Sheeza, what about you?
I'm gonna keep. I just saw that comment about toilet duck. It just made me crack up. Yeah, I totally agree with what Pollyanna said. So mine are quite simple. One, Alexi kind of hinted on already for the shittest one, but the biggest social strategy lesson is focus on one thing and do it really well. Don't feel like the pressure to do like multiple channels. Etc. You can as a brand succeed really well on just one channel and just really focus on it. So that's the simplest way to go. You find out what your audience is, go there, do it really well, get the buy-in, and then go and multiply. Shit is social, very similar to Alexi. Anything to do with formats just pisses me formats or posting schedules just pisses me off. I've seen brands that post like literally 25 times a day. I've seen brands that post 5 times a day. It's kind of works differently with different brands. Some brands don't even need to post and they can just do, paid social and do really well. It just depends on your objectives. So any kind of those hacks, those gimmicks at posting a certain amount a day, it just puts so much pressure on the social team and it's just isn't practical and it doesn't work. You can post less content and it be good quality and it will drive results for you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jaskaran, how about you?
The biggest lesson for me has been that we need to focus more on the structure of how things are changing and less on how people are saying things. Because a lot of the times, like we talked about how everyone about Duolingo or some brands, but it's not us, it's not LinkedIn that's not shutting up about Duolingo or something like that. It's the consumers. And we should focus on how consumers and the regular creators are talking about these brands and how they are talking about different trends and see the structure and try to analyze the terminology in those. The biggest lesson for brands is to understand the linguistics and terminology people are using to discuss their brands, and from there you can take lessons that, okay, we need to not talk about our consumers in this way, we need to talk about in the other way. Like when people on LinkedIn, the regular marketers are talking about Duolingo or on LinkedIn, they are like referencing some study. The real people are not referencing a study, they are referencing something else. And you should analyze that point of view and then go with it. Like, don't analyze Riz, why people are using Riz. You should analyze how people are using Riz. I think a few days ago, we shared an example in the community, Rob's community, that some very good brand was using like Sorry Babe. Agencies are not doing that. So brands should understand the difference between cooked and he got cooked and stuff like that. And that structure should be your lesson. Like, focus on the linguistics. That's my biggest strategy lesson. Focus on the structure, not what is trending. And the shittiest social strategy hot take for me is that when people say algorithm is your friend, as I don't think algorithm is your friend. Algorithm has a job that is to push great content, but it's just a job. If every person at your job is not your friend, but they know that uh, that we have got to work together and we have to manage. Algorithm is Michael Scott. That's my point. Like, like he definitely he sometimes cares about you, and he's not the bad guy, but you should understand that he also thinks about himself more than you. And that's the point. The algorithm, I have talked to some people at Meta, and they have done things that would seem inhuman to you. So please don't focus on, oh, algorithm is pushing this and I should be pushing that. Don't do that. Focus on, go back to your brand playbooks, go back to how your brand history, and that's the thing you should be doing every month. I think don't focus on the analytics that much, that build a different dashboard. I mean, overall, that's my take. The algorithm is not your friend. It can help you, but please don't make frenemies with algorithm.
Yeah.
That's
Careful with Michael Scott. I fucking love it. Algorithm as Michael Scott is up there for a highlight of my week so far. Thank you very much, everyone. All right, cool. Algorithm is a cat, fickle, sulking cat. Sometimes wants food and a chin scratch. That's also pretty good. Keep dropping algorithm metaphors. We could start a whole series about that. All right, so I think we're good on time. I was planning on this first section being about half hour. So now we're going to spend more on the practical side of things, which is essentially we have 5 brands that we are going to, and each of them has 3 examples of work that Berk found and we put together. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to let Berk kind of very quickly introduce what the brand is about, what category it's in, and give nothing else away. We're going to look at 3 executional examples of what that brand is doing on social. We prioritize mostly video, but there's a few non-video examples there as well. And then I'm going to ask you the same 3 questions every time, which is, what do you think the objective of what they're trying to do is? Who do you think they're targeting? And how would you describe their tone of voice? And you have a sum total of 1 mentions of being unhinged, and after that, it's cheating. So you can say it once over the course of the 5 brands. So we need to find better adjectives. Okay, cool. Before I play the videos, Berk, tell us what Wealthsimple is, please.
Yeah, for sure. So they are a fintech company, and what they do is an investing app / online investment service.
Wicked. Okay, I'm going to play the videos. I hope the audio works, but even if it doesn't, well, if it doesn't, then we have a problem. But I hope the audio works. Tell me if it doesn't. All right, that's one. I'm going to show another one.
Let's try this my way.
Okay, and the last one.
If you're perfect, your restaurant's busy every single day, and you're max capacity, and no one's stealing from you, and you know, you got like 10%, 12% profit, maybe.
All right. So 3 different examples. I'm going to, whoever wants to go first, what do you think their objective here is?
I put in that I think their objective is, I guess, to help people feel pretty chuffed with themselves. about their, I mean, I'm guessing it was mortgage rates. I'm not super clued into investing, but I kind of got the vibe, particularly in that last one and in the first one. It was very much like, yeah, I bossed that. I'm winning at money. So yeah, probably more in the awareness consideration piece rather than like a pure go and invest now. But yeah, just in terms of like reinforcing the feeling that you get when you use their platform.
Great. Anyone else on objectives?
Yeah, I think they are trying to be like at the same time established, and at the same time they are trying to be a little Gen Z with it, because I have noticed this trend with almost all the new banking brands and versus the older brands. Like here in Germany you have Sparkasse and there is another Deutsche Bank. They are truly unhinged. One, they are making jokes and funny, but if you look at Revolut and Wise, all, even the font of this brand, Wealthsimple, matches a lot with Wise in the US. And so they are trying to be like through the font and the art direction, they are trying to be serious, but at the same time, you can see that through the third example, they have an objective to target the younger demographic. That's what I'm getting at. Look established, but still target the younger demographic. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to use that as a segue then. Do we think that's the target audience for Wealthsimple? Is it the same? Do we think it's the same target audience in all these different executions, or are they trying to reach different people in different ways?
I disagree. I think it's aiming at people who don't know anything about money and mortgages and investing. I don't think it's a generational piece. I think it's an attitude piece. Investing is really, really like hard, sounds boring, sounds stuffy, sounds like something that I need to be, have been trained on, or, you know, have a friend in the know. So I think it's less about a demographic and more about trying to win over people who find money scary, and to just put a bit of a lighthearted spin on it and appeal more to the emotions.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Alex.
Sorry, good. I was going to say, I agree with Pollyanna. I think it's not directly excluding an audience, but I do think when you look at generations, the relationship that Gen Z have with saving and personal finance is inherently a little bit different to, let's say, millennials, where there is a little less stigmatization around talking about these things publicly. And I think there's also more like social clout and status attached to being a good, responsible saver, I think, with younger generations. And I think it taps into a lot of that by making it not necessarily like sexy or like fun, but, you know, something that's actually quite meaningful and approachable. So yeah, I think that's why it does feel like it is skewed more towards Gen Z. But I think like I guess what makes it kind of good is that it doesn't feel like it's super excluding, you know, older generations either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's definitely financial literacy, but it's not just generation focused. If you look at their creative, it's very diverse. Like they showcase like people from a very diverse background, but using those themes of like old money and what would have been considered like stuffy, I don't know how to say this, but like white man, you know, like posh mansions and all of that, like, you know, like that kind of idea of wealth being only for that top 1%. But actually they're taking almost the piss out of it and are like having fun with it, and are like, actually we're demystifying it so it's accessible to everybody, depending on, like you were saying, Pollyanna, people who just come from maybe underprivileged backgrounds who don't have access to that financial advice that, you know, so that's the kind of feeling I'm getting from it.
Yeah. It's an interesting question in and of itself, which is they might not be targeting Gen Z, but they seem to be borrowing some codes that feel like they're born out of Gen Z culture. What's your comment on that? Is there validity to that?
Probably, but Gen Z culture shapes internet culture. So any brand that's going to be kind of trying to stay relevant, and then it'll be Gen Alpha culture. You know, it's just going to evolve with time. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, tone of voice. What's their tone?
I mean, I kind of said that already. Like taking that stuffiness but bringing it more, making it a bit more approachable, a bit more modern, and demystifying, I think someone said in the comments, you know, making it simpler.
Lighthearted, would you say?
Lighthearted, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of went for like eyebrow raising, surprising.
Hmm. What do you mean?
I mean, I think, yeah, sorry.
What do you mean by that, Pollyanna? Eyebrow raising, surprising?
Because I think definitely in that last one, I think it's like, but even the first one, I mean, first of all, when I saw the video at first, I thought it was to get rid of rat face. So to then kind of go through and then realize it was talking about rates, that was surprising to me. But yeah, I think it's eyebrow raising. I think it's, and I mean that in that you're sort of looking at it and it's a little bit absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, to echo everyone else's points there, it's I loved what Jessa put actually up in the comments. You know, it's smart professionals, but they're stupid when it comes to their own finances. Thought that was good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So absurd, lighthearted. Okay. That starts to feel like there's shape there. Alexi?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I mean, I think like the rate-based content is interesting, but that almost feels like more like a TVC direction to me. But I think what was really interesting with some of the other content that I'm seeing on their feed is that it also feels very informative. Like it doesn't shy away from just, you know, actually getting quite deep around, you know, like, okay, here's a person that is a customer of ours. This is exactly how they saved X amount of money in 3 years. These are the lifestyle changes they made, X, Y, Z. And so it kind of shows that, you know, you don't have to make everything like really sort of like, you know, entertainment led and quirky. Like there is a hunger for like actual informative, you know, education.
Yeah, especially with stuff like this, right? There's definitely tons of interesting educational resources on Instagram that, I mean, they just do carousels and videos that are so helpful, right? So just as a side note, but like since my daughter was born, my Instagram is basically 50% Taylor Lorenz meme accounts and 50% child psychologists. Like that's it. But the psychologists do very good. Like they're very good on carousels and videos on just demystifying books or studies or whatever. And so stuff like this, where they're not trying to be funny or whatever, they're just trying to like teach you something, is actually an underused place to learn from, especially if you do think that in order to be educational, you got to be a bit less entertaining. Like you can still have personality by entertaining people. Sorry, by educating people. What's interesting for me as well is that the obviously not all of these executions follow all of these tonal traits. And I think that's probably okay, right? Because you can't always be, say if we go, it's lighthearted, absurd, and practical. You go, well, not everything can be all three things. Sometimes you got to over-index on one or the other. Do you think there's truth to that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think on social you have to do that. And I think that's probably where it is compared to like other channels. Whereas, you know, with other kind of creative executions, maybe you always have those core values and you have to kind of convey all of them as across. But with social, you can kind of segment them and have them come out at different times. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I actually think that's sometimes an under discussed value of what social can bring. So like I used to work on O2, and O2 on their advertising by necessity need to make a big thing about the network, because it's if they don't do it, they lose network quality perceptions. Even if that happens, that correlates with loss of market share. But as a result, there's tons of stuff that they can talk about, but they don't on their advertising because they got to do that. So as soon as you go into social and you go, okay, well, no one wants to hear about networks. Oh, but we have this whole thing called priority. Okay, there's this other part of the brand that has not been expressed in advertising, but maybe there's a great role for it on social as well. So like one thing I always think about is one potential role for social is, are there things your brand has that are interesting that have no role or space, and there are other parts of the media mix? And could that be your angle specifically for social? And I think there's something quite courageous in just going, we're going to explicitly just focus on these things because A, we know people might want to hear more about them, but B, they don't get airtime anywhere else because the advertising is doing something else entirely. So I quite like that sense of almost like there's a modularity to, okay, we're going to focus on these parts of the brand with this tone, but not these other things. And it speaks again to your point, Sheeza, earlier about taking a bird's eye view on how is everything working together rather than just going, oh, our social is going to be about fun. It's like, no, but look at the totality and look what's being done around the brand as a whole, and then pick the bits that work best for social. Feels like a practical thing that sometimes we don't always do. Just start with like the small little corner of what's going to do well on TikTok. Yeah, everything, everywhere, all at once on social. Yeah, exactly. It's a problem. Okay, Jaskaran, any thoughts on tone of voice?
Not much. I think they are pretty like toned down. They don't want to like shout like you need to save money. They are giving different examples of giving them different people to see like, hey, if you don't like this one, this person, then look at that. So it's very minimal. That's what I think the tone is. And actually I think they are balancing because the examples we saw, they are like promotional and a little bit loud compared to carousels where you just tone it down. And that's what I like about them. And it's much better than if you look at Entrepreneur magazine or some other magazines, they are always like going behind headlines. And even if people are looking at them to get some information, and then you look at you unfollow them because they are simply not educating in a consistent way, and
Yeah,
that's what they are doing, and I like that. Yeah, very minimal tone.
so there's an understatedness as well to it, which is a decision, right? Because you could decide to go, let's try and get people to be like really aggressive and let's fucking go around investments, but that's not what they're doing. They're being understated by design, it seems.
Yeah, I mean they can, because if you look at most headlines about even millennials, Gen X, all the headlines from Newsweek, Business Insider, they are always bashing them like, hey, Gen Z is not saving, millennials are rent burdened, and they are like, just calm down, listen to these examples, and maybe hopefully you will get better. And
Yeah,
that's what we had. And also, like someone in the chat, Berk mentioned in the chat, they have a newsletter. So that's I think the main part of this is like they are sending people to the newsletter where it's less crowdy and they can take them on a long journey. Like maybe they will end up on a presentation like that and they will get counseling and something like that. Yeah, I really like that.
great, thank you. All right, let's do another brand. I don't think we need to introduce Currys, but just so that it doesn't feel weird, for anyone who doesn't know, Berk, what is Currys?
They're an electronic products retailer. Think Best Buy, but in the UK.
Yes, and they, I'm just going to show you. Well, the reason I say this, right, check your bias, and I'll check my bias as well. A bunch of us are based in the UK, but I know for a fact some people in this call are not, and I didn't know what Currys was until I moved here. So it is a valid question, okay? Don't mock me. All right, let's show some stuff around Currys. They're not a curry brand.
Fuad looks like the type of guy who says, no more Mr. Nice Guy when he gets angry. Why don't you take a step back and start acting like your hairline?
I couldn't hear a thing.
How about your hairline? James is the type of guy to close the fridge with his hips. There's people laughing. I don't know what I'm going.
What? You can't hear me now?
I can't hear nothing, G.
That's a good thing. What the is that what you're on?
Yeah, I'm on a dog unit thing. What are you
Okay.
on? This is terrifying. Tuck me in. Where am I, big man? Bro! Relax. Alright, stay there, yeah? Alright. Jesus Christ. Hey, yo! I didn't know Johnny was gonna get that close. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I thought you were gonna
None. I'm gonna try and just play the second one, because otherwise it's gonna take bloody ages. Hang on. Do you know, Berk, there's a way of stopping the first video from playing while I play the second video? Maybe it's there's a media controls thing.
Yeah, it should.
Oh, wonderful.
Low drip something. Need a new phone? I'd best. This air fryer is goat. Very mindful. Is yes. Slay queen. Yes, queen. Yes, queen. What? It's serving. It's serving Cumberland sausages.
Right, and then the third one is in a video. It's just tweets, which are basically, I mean, you can read it, but basically it's showing like a mouse and they're going, there's a whole younger generation that have no idea what this is, or blocking someone in the 90s, and then you just put your phone, like, I don't even know what the best way to describe it is, but, you know, basically making fun of how younger people don't know what old tech is. Right. What do we think their objective here is?
I think, I mean, first and foremost, probably just awareness of their brand. So again, just in the funnel world, at the top of the funnel. But I think also they have a bit of a brand objective, which is you can get some decent kit and it's not going to break the bank because it's not screaming, you know, high production value, you know, shot on a set. It's very much feels like shot on iPhone, they're using TikTok, they're using employees. And I think all of that is designed to sort of symbolize we're not, you know, £1,000 laptops or whatever. You know, they're a sort of every person's consumer electronics retailer. So that's where I saw it from their objective. And obviously I think they are doing it very well. Nice. Jaskaran, I'm curious about what you think, because I think Alexi and Sheeza and Pollyanna, I know for a fact know what Curry's is. Did you know what Curry's is apart from just being across all things social? Did you know what they were as a brand before?
A year ago, I didn't, but I really like their new brand platform. I think, I don't know, don't remember the slogan, but they have a really great brand platform right now. And their new campaigns are awesome. I think the objective here is, one is obviously awareness, as Pollyanna shared. The other is, I think, showing that they care about the customer. I think what I see in their content almost every single time is they are like the Chick-fil-A of UK, because, you know, Chick-fil-A doesn't on their official social, that's not a thing, but in the US, there is a lot of content about how Chick-fil-A has the best customer service and how people will go to extremes. And I think that's what they showed in this video and all of their content, that you see the people are going to extremes and they care about the customer. And I think that's the main objective. Even their main campaign, where in real customers were sliding the devices like you would do in Tinder or something like an online app. And that's, I think, the main objective, show the customer satisfaction.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about them. And overall, if you asked me last year, I would obviously say like it's a British curry brand, like like in the Indian curry. Yeah, but I really like the brand.
Yeah, and your thing about customer first is not new to them as well. They've highlighted their customer service and putting customers first for a bloody long time in their brand communication. So it's so interesting, right? Because it's just a nice, very native way of talking about the extreme lengths you go for your customers. And I quite like your interpretation of that, specifically with the first video, because it's like, right, we're not only going to tell you it's great, we're not only going to do a demo to say it's great, and so that you get the best value. We're going to go extreme demo on you, and they made it work very well. Anyone else on objectives?
Yeah, I think curries kind of became a bit antiquated, right? Because well, when you think back in the day, you used to go into the store to buy your first laptop or iPod or whatever, but now, yeah, so you can just go to Amazon to buy cables and stuff. So I think that part of it is to modernize the brand and to make it a bit more relevant for the younger generation. That's why I think they're playing on these things where it's, oh, this is what the younger generation doesn't know, or they've got Gen Z employees, doing millennials, or millennial employees doing boomer employees doing Gen Z, that sort of stuff. It's kind of playing on that because it's kind of showcasing, I guess, that there is value of going into the store. So yeah, I think that's maybe part of it as well.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, I mean, I of course know curries. I haven't lived in the UK for a while, but I've always got the sense that no one has really taken curries seriously as a brand. Maybe it's just what they sell, or maybe it's just like the name of them. I think it's interesting what they've been able to do. Something that I also think is very uniquely, when we talk about the tone of voice, I think they've done something that I think British brands are only really able to do, which is this very unique flavor of self-depreciation, of kind of making fun of yourself. Which I kind of seen like across all their content, like a lot of their content around, they're just making fun of like the millennial shop staff and so forth. So I think that seems to work quite well with them in a way. But I think if they were like an American brand, they probably wouldn't be able to pull off as effectively.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I want to mention something like someone in the comment mentioned that they have very bad service, like they don't have good service. And that reminds me of one of other brand. There's a, I think, fashion brand in US. It's called Set Active, and it's an influencer-led brand. And they had very bad engagement. And then they hired a Gen Z influencer. And now it's like, and they film all of the content in the office and they are having fun. And the engagement is off the charts. Like, it's like 20,000, 30,000, like on average. So, but if you look at their Glassdoor, it's like everyone is saying that they have very bad reputation for working and all this stuff. And I think this goes to say that it's usually this type of content is usually for the very new audience. It's obviously for the awareness type audience, and one can get this idea that they have very good service, and that's the main goal. You have the service or not, that's different thing. That's a problem that marketing has had for years, that we promise something and something doesn't happen, and and that's okay. But this is a model of Wendy's and stuff like that. People are going to adapt that. People are going to use these examples. It's all right. And as long as you get your job secured by doing this stuff, don't care.
There's only so much a social team can control about the customer service, but certainly if you're the CMO, you should be looking at that stuff, right? Because and I'm sure I hope they seem to be a well-managed brand. So I hope they're looking at that other part of the experience so that it doesn't fall flat. Funnily enough, it's a side note. I don't know how their socials are, but maybe if we do another one of these, we could look at it. But I think one brand that does really good, and actually based on truth from my experience, customer-led comms, is Octopus Energy in the UK. So Octopus Energy, and again, I don't know their socials, but just as a side note, they're running these radio ads where they don't just tell you they have great customer relationships, they show you, they play transcripts of customers thanking their call center supporter and saying you were great, etc., etc. And then they go, award-winning customer service. And I think there's something quite powerful in that, like actually playing out. And I hope it's real, but because they're highly regulated, it probably is real. Yeah, just that sense of like they actually put some proof to demonstrate they are great at customer service. In this case, qualitative proof, but still. And my experience is actually their customer service is spectacular. So yeah, there's always that challenge of like what you say about the brand and then what the delivery of the experience actually is. But as far as if the brief is, make it feel like we will go to extreme lengths for customers, it feels like they fulfill it quite well. Certainly in comms, the store is, another person's job to worry about, certainly outside of the social team, but hopefully they fix it soon. Hopefully. Yeah, Octopus and Jackson has fantastic service. Yeah, I've been with them for a few years. They're very good. We talked a bit about audience, but yeah, so just do we think they're trying to attract a new audience into curries? Sheeza, you kind of hinted at that. Do you think they're being explicit about getting that younger, under 30 consumer to maybe want to buy at curries instead of shopping something on Amazon or whatever?
I think so. Yeah, it seems like a lot of it is, and I think a lot of the people that are commenting are saying similar. Like it's towards a younger audience. Even the first one, it's a partnership with these podcasters that tend to be, very TikTok first. I love that the one thing that brands kind of sometimes fall into a trap of when it comes to partnerships is trying to control too much with the creative. And I really like that they lent on the creative those guys do anyway. If you've ever seen their podcast clips or podcasts, that's exactly what they do. They just like read out stuff out loud and react to it and have like lots of laughs. So I really liked that. But yeah, from the creative, it does look like it's trying to kind of tap into that younger internet culture and make curries more relevant for the audience of today, I guess.
Wicked. Anyone else on audience? Cool. I'm going to take that as no further comments. She's absolutely right, which I think she is. So what about tone? Are they unhinged? That's my one mention depleted. I wasted it early.
I think it's banter, right?
Yeah.
It's not unhinged. It's just very like, yeah. There we go. Yeah, I'd say it's banter. It's good old, I think I put in the comments earlier, very like British culture. We're very self-deprecating and we're very happy to, yeah. And it's all for jokes. I was on a call the other day and there was a phrase that was thrown around that was banter, not bullying. And I think that's I took that away because even though it was nothing to do with social, but I just thought that's quite a nice way to operate in the world if you're putting out content like this.
Nice. What about, yeah, anyone else on tone? Banter, not bullying is good, by the way.
No, I mean, I think just back to what I said earlier, I mean, I think there is something uniquely British with a tone of voice, which, yeah, it's hard to put a certain word on, but yeah, it's got to do with self-depreciation, being very self-aware. And it's, yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because I think having worked both in the UK, but also like right now in Germany, I think every culture has like a certain sense of humor that brands try to tap onto. So I feel like in Germany, there are like brands kind of similar to curries that are trying to like not take themselves too seriously, but they probably lean more into a sense of like dark humor, which is, I think, like a very like uniquely German flavor of comedy. So I think it's quite interesting that there are these sort of like, yeah, very sort of geographical nuances in terms of like how brands try to be, unhinged in their own way.
That's also an interesting and under-discussed point, which is a lot of the references we look at tend to be very American. And of course, there's then a bias towards the types of humor that maybe are American in nature. Not because it's a bad thing, it's just a different thing, right? But yeah, it's interesting that I've not seen a lot of people talk about social like different types of humor across different regions expressed through how brands show up in social. I think that could be a very interesting thing to look into. Sorry, Jaskaran.
No worries. I think if Alexi knows there is a supermarket, a business market in Germany, Metro, and they do a lot of social content on TikTok, and their tone is because of East Germany and that culture that you have to be judgy. So they are very judgy, and they usually create videos. I think they started with this idea of that someone would judge the orders of businesses on the counter, and they will say like, what did you get? And they will be judgy very, and that's the main idea here. And overall, the other supermarkets in Germany are also very similar, but because Germans love to finance and stuff, even though we just lost our finance minister, that's a different thing. But Germans love finance, so there have been very finance focused, budget focused campaigns. But otherwise, there's a very judgy tone, like they judge. And there are shoe brands. They are also where like there is a eBay of Germany, Kleine Anzeigen, and there is another brand, Deichmann. It's like Foot Locker, and they are just fighting. The most social brands in Germany are fighting with each other always, and they have just like you see the American brands try to own each other, and that has just gone 10x up level in Germany. That's what I have seen. That's a cultural difference, I think. Yeah.
That's a very nice piece of local insight. Thank you. All right. We're good on time, I think. I'm just going to move us on. We have 3 more to go. So hang on. Right. Berk, what are we looking at?
A sustainable period care product brand. So their discs are the most popular. Before they were known as like All Bodies Health, before they came Flex. But yeah, they do a suite of sustainable period care products.
Cool. I'm going to show you 2 videos. And before you think, oh, wow, that's graphic, trust me, there was a very graphic video that didn't make the cut because Sheeza very wisely said, it's pre-lunchtime, not a good idea. If you do want to know what that video was, you can message us and Berk will send it to you, but don't shoot the messenger. Just, it's very graphic. It's important, it's just very graphic. Right, so Flex, all about sexual education, well-being, etc. Let's show a couple of videos. Yeah, viewer discretion advised. Oh, is there sound there? Well, you don't need to listen to it. It's basically crisis management or reputational management, responding to basically toxic metals detected in tampons, and I suppose trying to just trying to give their point of view on what's happening and trying to be honest about their, how they're different, how to try and prevent that happening from their products. And then the other one is, I'm going to stop playing that, and then I'm going to stop playing this. Well, that's annoying. The sound isn't playing. Anyway, it's fine. Just watch and learn. I didn't know this for obvious reasons. Yeah, it's fine. It's not that. It's not. Doesn't make a big difference on these ones. But yeah, basically product demo of some kind. Cool. Peeps, what's the objective here?
Change perceptions, change attitudes, change. I think it's also just trying to, well, I mean, it's disrupting an existing category that's also existed for a very long time based on a certain way of, dealing with the monthly flow. So, yeah, I think for me, it's very much because you can't, in this category in particular, it's not like a high interest category, but it's a very charged and emotional category. And people need to know that they are going to be super safe and that it's going to work, because the offset is, you know, a whole bowl of emotions, you know, whether it's embarrassment, it's shame, it's guilt, all of those things that happen if this goes wrong. So I think here they were very wise to not go down, you know, lighthearted, playful, because you need to convince people that this is going to do just as good a job as the things that you've been using forever. But on top of that, the things that you've been using are also not great. So yeah, I think that's why they're kind of this very long form video. They need, you know, the 2 to 3 minutes to convey that. It's not a 7-second, here's a tampon.
Great. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think exactly what Pollyanna said. Plus, I would add education, because it's such a taboo topic. Even women don't know, you know, our bodies, because people don't talk about it. Many women haven't explored exactly, you know, different methods. We've just been told you need to do this, and we kind of just go, oh, okay. So I think education, and to Pollyanna's point, like that 3-minute video, is because like we're like, oh, so this is how it works, you know. So it's a key part of it, and obviously advocacy as well, because they're talking about all these metals and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, it's disrupting the category, but also trying to educate the audience, people who might already be kind of on their side as well about their products, but also the topic in general.
Great. How would you describe the audience? Here's the obvious stuff: women. But attitudinally, tell me about that.
Yeah, I think, yeah, go ahead.
I know, you can go ahead.
No, I really want like a male perspective. So yeah, go ahead.
All right, so Jaskaran, how would you describe who this is targeting? What type? Yes, women, but where they're at in terms of their own journey or understanding of sexual well-being and just general well-being?
To be honest, I think the audience, first of all, nobody like dreams of seeing this, even like women. I'm just assuming that even like on your feed, you just open TikTok, nobody wants to see that. They want to be educated, but they don't want to directly see that. But that's why I think what is really useful here, the article video, where she is reacting to an article and doing the breakdown research. That's the way to engage the audience. And I think this is a situation where when you are trying to educate on a taboo subject, you should look for the writers, you should look for the articles that really write engaging titles. Because, for example, I talk a lot about research on my own Instagram, and there is my friend on, maybe you have heard of her, there is Tail Science on TikTok. She's pretty big on TikTok. She explains science and researches. And the important thing is that you should be captivated with the title. Show the title. Let the people, first of all, show the title and have the caption. A lot of people have their audio down. So get them to have their own context. Make them lose focus from who is the... You shouldn't be the subject of the situation, because some people can be attacking. Like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to hear your opinion on this. Like, there are a lot of situations. So that's why I think when discussing these subjects, you should have a third-party article, third-party research. So you look established. People can trust you. And even if they don't trust you, they can look at, okay, New York Times wrote this article, so I'm going to pay attention for a while. That's what I think, that you should give them more credibility to yourself. Yeah, I mean, I'm not heavily into this subject. Most of the campaigns I have seen about these subjects are very like bold from Gen Z brands, where I think there was a tampon brand in UK where they were like, they had a big ad about this is a tampon and this is all that type of stuff. So yeah, it's a very different approach. So
yeah,
that's my take. I'm not an expert.
Interesting question, which I want to ask specifically Pollyanna and Sheeza about this. Well, all of you, but specifically starting with you two. And I appreciate this is going to sound a bit strange because none other of you have actually seen the video I'm going to talk about. But that highly graphic video that we were considering putting in, if you saw that in your feed, what do you think your response would be?
Yeah, I was gonna say I slightly disagree with Jaskaran, because I think it's one top, like any, well, it's not one topic. Loads of female-led topics haven't been spoken about. So from my perspective, when people are talking about these things, I'm like, wow, let's go, let's talk about it, let's bring it out in the open. And I think when you guys picked this brand, exactly, that's what I said, you know, hats off to you guys choosing this, you know, as males. So I can understand why maybe, and it's interesting because I can understand why a male or man might think that way and think, oh yeah, I'm going to scroll past, or I don't really, or if it's too in your face, basically. Whereas for me, I would think, well, oh, that's fab. Like, I'm learning something new, and also people don't talk about this shit enough. Let's talk about it. Pollyanna?
I mean, for me, I don't even, yeah, it's a tricky one, because I think I take it back a little bit further and say, even if it's not about periods, I think if it's about any topic that's considered taboo, the platforms themselves pixelate them, down rank you, throttle you with, you know, shadow banning and all the rest of it. So, you know, if this has managed to make it through, then fantastic. I also think as well, like, it's very, I think because we've not seen it before, not been exposed to it, it's probably, yeah, going to come across as quite shocking in your feed, because it's probably not like anything else that you've got on there. But yeah, I don't think I can add anything more than what Sheeza was saying, because I think, yeah, if we're going to talk about it, then we need to talk about it. And I think you kind of have to go to the extreme, and then over time it just becomes normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a segue on the extreme, does anyone want to see the graphic video? Because we can drop the, all right. I'm going to ask again, are you sure? Okay. Berk, do you have the video? Okay. It might be fine. I just warned you 3 times. That's all I'm saying. It's in the comments if you want to. Yeah.
I want to reply to Sheeza.
Yeah,
because,
please.
She made the right point. And my judgment is probably based on, because my Instagram feed is very taboo right now, and I'm a man. And the thing is, I don't trust that the algorithm, and especially Instagram comments these days. The content is first being pushed to the wrong audiences. That's a bigger problem here, that a brand can get hit with, like, they are pushing to some 13-year-old kid, alpha male. Like, even today I saw someone, like, some guy made a video like he was also alpha pro, but some kid commented under his video like, you are not Sigma. And like, and these things happen when I see these videos, because my female creator friends do this. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, this is amazing. Like, when Elf Beauty did that, there are so many dicks in the upper board, and these type of campaigns do really well, but moderation and all that other stuff, that's really bad on these platforms. Otherwise, brands should do it. I just think about that there are a lot of bad people on the internet, and
Yeah.
that's the problem with the taboo content. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a hard one to tackle, isn't it? Because then you also get into questions like, is the algorithm serving? Well, actually, I was going to say something, but actually, I think it should serve it to, like, should it serve this type of video to underage women? And probably the answer is yes, because you got to start learning about this stuff earlier rather than later, right? But then Pollyanna made a good point about, like, I wonder to what extent the algorithm favors or not, or maybe it's just neutral, which I highly doubt, to highly graphic videos like the one that Berk shared, because we know that there's, like, a legacy of, for example, show a male nipple it's fine. Show a female nipple. Oh no, that's censored content. But like, you know, are they being? Do they get? Do platforms? Do brands like Flex get punished by publishing more graphic content, even though it is the right thing to do? Is an interesting question. Breastfeeding content as well. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it is life. You're right. I just wonder if the people who code the algorithms have, if there's any mechanism that basically goes, oh yeah, this is sexual education. It's not literally someone's vagina or vulva, which is actually the technical term, by the way, for the things you learn when you have a daughter. Anyway, let's yeah, people who code are men. That's exactly what I was yeah. Anyway, by the way, just to be clear, the vulva thing, I know it's the outside. Is that right? Outside, not the inside. Anyway, I'm gonna stop digging my own hole here. Yes, thank you, Darcy. Thank you for not making me look like an idiot. Make myself look like an idiot, rather. Okay, but either way, I think it's interesting because taboo topics are potentially quite interesting to talk about, but I can imagine a lot of brands go, oh, is that too much? And it feels like for Flex, they're going, it's not too much. It's just, like Pollyanna says, it's life, right? And so we should normalize it. All right, should we do another one? Hang on. Starface. That's very true as well, Alex. Nothing more graphic than what we're seeing circulate on Twitter these days. Berk, tell us about Starface.
Yeah, this will be less graphic, so don't worry. They're a brand that went viral on TikTok, and they have a suite of vegan and cruelty-free skincare products. So they're most known for like their star-shaped pimple patches.
Wonderful. Let's look at some videos. I don't know what happened with the sound, but it's okay.
Did you maybe you were with the controls earlier? Maybe you clicked something, because since then it hasn't been working.
Yeah, it's strange. Hang on. Let me try and maybe load it a little bit again.
Yeah, it's working on mine.
Oh, it's working on yours. So it might just be a
Yeah.
shitty sync thing. Let's try it again. Okay. Oh, hang on. Wrong login. Fucking classic. Give me a sec. Present something else with that. There you go. Go. All right.
How to insert.
There we go. We're back. Yeah, of course. This was planned, by the way. It just doesn't feel too slick. Yeah, man. All right, that's one.
You and I both know.
Right. What's the objective here?
I think here, the thing that always comes to mind when you see stuff like this is that if you think about just taking a step back and just its face cleanser, let's say, you know, it's a CPG product that you can buy at Target in the US or Tesco over here, but I know this is a US brand. Your whole aim, I guess, is to try and win that shelf, right? Because it's, you go and do your weekly shopping and will you pick these up? It's not really a high interest or a high investment purchase. So I think here it's really about, they've got a very distinctive product and the visual there, and they have to kind of keep pushing that through and through and through. So yeah, very much like raising awareness of their brand so that you can then spot them on the digital or the physical shelf. So yeah, I think it's just purely because I imagine you're not going to go in specific. I mean, we've got people that wear Starface actually here at work, and I think they look awesome. They're not buying them specifically. It's like they've chucked it in whilst they're buying stuff online. Like there's a lot of other things. So it's how do you make sure that when you're buying stuff for your skin, it earns that attention. So yeah, that was kind of where I went.
Yeah, recognition at shelf, at point of sale.
100%.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, you can go first, Alexi.
Cool. Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I think the interesting thing with Starface is I think they've been quite smart with really thinking about the design of the packaging and also the product itself, where, yeah, they're pushing it on social to like build awareness and distinction on the shelves. But at the same moment, the way that packaging has been designed, the colors they're using, the fact that like, these pimple patches, right, which is their most popular product, they're shaped like colorful stars and icons. Like all this is designed, and I think very, on a very conscious level, it's designed to work in the feed, right, where it captures attention. It's easy for people to take selfies using the product. So I think this is like a kind of like a perfect example where for them, they've sort of designed like, whether it's their packaging, their product, their whole brand identity is designed to work on social and vice versa.
Nice. Who's their audience for this?
Obviously not acne people. To be honest, I have acne, so I have a very different view of the brand as someone with acne, that they are trying to be more than someone who has pimples or someone who wants to like solve their problem. They are focusing on someone who wants to look cool. They are trying to be they are obviously trying to be the internet brand with their socials. They have partnered with internet influencers. Like they recently, I think Madeline, the influencer, they partnered with her, and the comments of that video obviously shared a similar sentiment to mine, that she doesn't have the pimple problem. You just want to get the cool people. You don't want to solve the problem. So that's the main idea there, that they want to be more than just a problem solver. They want to be cool. They want to be seen as a product. I think they want to appeal to just as a brand. On the face of brand, they don't want to appeal as like a product. They want to be like, you should buy us for being on social. You should buy us for who we are, how we look, not the problem we are solving. But they should be doing that because I think the product is not bad. It's good, and it's doing, like, for example, it's obviously also doing better for people with pimples to feel good about acne. If they have it, they can wear it, and it's making it cool. Like they have a very similar brand to Topicals. If you know Topicals, the beauty brand, their products are also very like design. The packaging they are nailing it. But the difference, I think, between Topicals and them is Topicals has just more strategy, and they are very good at just making the good product. They are very good at overall, I think, having good response from the audience.
It seems to me like then there's also communications objective there, which is not only being recognized in store, but also being seen as an aspirational brand, which I suspect means that they're not the cheapest out there. Are they? Are they expensive?
I don't think they are cheapest.
So by making it aspirational, it's kind of a reducing price elasticity kind of thing, which is fancy speak for they can charge more.
I think just to build on what Jaskaran was saying, 100% agree. Like, this is people who get spots pimples, and it's something that affects them. But then there's also the side which is, this is people who show off their personality through accessories. We've spoken about it, sort of, is this actually what people want? But actually, we've got a very like a culture that's very individualistic and uses the products that they buy to kind of show off their personality, their aesthetic. So I think, to your point, it's very different to someone that has, whether it's rosacea or something like that, where it's a lot more, this is very much like, oh, I've got a spot and I'm going to make it look cute.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal. Also, they are benefiting from this, because if you look into the fashion scene, almost all fashion brands now they don't do the backgrounds, they do the accessories. Like the Skims brand, they had a whole campaign where it's just Gen Z with a different like iPod hanging and some different keychains. So everything is an accessory to Gen Z, because as Alexi shared, everything is performative with this new young generation. So they want to capitalize on anything. It's just the fear, like it's a Donald Trump equation, like the fear, capitalize on the fear. Yeah.
Yeah. What about their tone? What do we think about their tone?
Fun.
Playful. Yeah. What she just said.
Didn't someone say there was like this word that kept floating around a few years ago, which is like adorkable, which is I think on the same level that should also be banned with Unhinged.
Yeah. Well, if we do this again, that's going to be the next ban. That's an interesting brief. Just show a bunch of Gen Z brands and say you're not allowed to say adorkable, and just see the panic ensue. Thanks, Titu. So fun, quite lighthearted, quite self-deprecating as well, at least that middle one, which I personally adored. Make it feel like a stand-up scene where you just wish you'd disappear because you had a bad joke. I think there's quite a lot of cleverness going on there. Right. I'm conscious of time. We still have 30 minutes to go, but I also have some questions that people sent me in advance, which I want to ask you. Let's just look at the last one. And the last one, by design, we picked the last one because sometimes, and I don't know if it's I don't know if it's the case with a lot of people here, but sometimes, say if you're freelance and you do social strategy, sometimes your clients are like the local barber shop. So you go, oh shit, does any of this apply to them? Well, here's an example that is Berk. What is it?
It's nothing crazy here. It's literally a ramen restaurant.
It's a ramen restaurant, right? Thanks, Alan. Thanks, and Alex. So yeah, ramen restaurant, and you'd think, great, just show videos of your ramen or photos like it's 10 years ago. They chose to do this instead.
Consistent happiness is like an overrated goal. I don't think that's possible. I think contentedness is just more about surrendering to the truth that we have no control. And happiness is the ability to find gratitude and comfort in that truth.
Okay, and then this.
When you're around the wrong people, wrong relationship, wrong things, it smears your vision. All of a sudden, your creativity, your flow, all of that is flatline. The moment you clear out your environment, everything just starts to flow. I wrote something that says, be like water. I flow not just like Flo Jo with the glow, but I go with the flow of life. Don't fight the tides, you only end up tired.
I mean, that last video was so sick and slick. What's the objective here?
I mean, I think I really wanted to see it as more of like, associating coming to Immi Ramen with sort of positive environments, positivity. I completely agree with Alexi there. I did get very Human of New York vibes. So I think it's just, definitely, I don't think it's necessarily, it's not in your face raising awareness, but if you sort of stay and stick around and follow, etc., then I imagine you'll then get the vibe that, and I'm sure there's other content on their feed that shows their restaurant itself, but I think it's very much, you can go to all these other restaurants that will be really rowdy, or maybe it's for like Friday dinners, or it's, you know, gather with loads of like friends and, you know, drink loads. Whereas this just feels like, come to us, we're really cozy. I got cozy vibes.
Yeah, Felicia here in the comments, I think she has a nice take. Dial up the dash of comfort that ramen gives you. I think there's probably a less logic there. Also, I couldn't help but notice that like the interviewer is dressed like a ramen pack. Which I think that's what it is. Is that what it is, Berk? Is that a ramen pack?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so that's the branding there for you. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was going to be my thing. I think it's like it is an incredibly refreshing approach of not, you know, they could have easily forced the interviewees to be, you know, eating a bowl of ramen while they're giving their answers. But I wonder, you know, when you take this within the context of how it's being viewed, where, you know, people are just swiping through the For You page and they land on this one video, are they paying enough attention to, you know, where, like, what account is posting this? Is there enough brand association there? You know, that's my sort of cynical marketing hat of, you know, are they building enough brand association? Is there a way they could do it more naturally to tie that very beautiful content to the product?
Yeah, I agree with Alexi. When I look at it, I think it's ramen that's good for you. So they're trying to do people stories that are good for you, and like chicken soup for the soul sort of vibe. But I totally agree. I don't know if this is an effective strategy, because it's one that's looking to get a lot of views, but I don't think that people, unless you're a hardcore follower and then you know, buy into them over time, if you keep seeing their content again and again, yes, then you might find out, oh, actually it's a ramen brand or a ramen restaurant running the account. But at first glance, you're like, oh, that's a nice story, and then on to the next.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, it's one of the challenges with local businesses, isn't it? Because, you know, with stuff like this, you could be getting distribution for people that aren't even based near where the restaurant is, in which case it's, yeah, you may get an affinity to the fact they did it, but it doesn't really translate to behavior because you're not there. Yeah.
Yeah, there are also other examples of this, like if you know La La Land Cafe, and there is another coffee shop in LA that is doing similar stuff, and and I get it that this is like globalization of a small business, and you don't know how many local people are getting it, but there are people, you will see comments of people that I came from like Berlin, I came from Paris to visit this immi ramen. Also, they have two accounts. They have one account for their all the ramen and product stuff, and then they have this account. Rachel Carton from Lincoln Bio did an awesome interview with I think the interviewee. Also, what I really love about it is the small businesses, that they have taken something very common, but very like most ramen brand ignore the stories that are in people's life about ramen. First of all, there is a great walks video on YouTube about how ramen is so common in jails, in prison, and I think the whole story is around ramen in prison. There are a lot of movies about ramen, people eating ramen in very bad situations. And I think they have taken that and turned into a whole strategy. And it could have been strategy of many big brands, and they didn't do it. They didn't focus on because obviously we know there are only few ramen brands, and they kill it, and they are all, and people like you. Once you get into ramen and people know it, like I'm going for Indomie, I'm going for Maggie or stuff like that.
Yeah, I quite like what who was it that said? I think it was you, Pollyanna. Yeah, comfort food, therefore comfort feed. There's a nice ring to that. All right, cool. So audience-wise, I find this one interesting because obviously there's a degree of local audiences hopefully seeing this and recognizing it, and you know, the brand being more mentally available. But is there any value in this going beyond local audiences? Like, is there value in building emotional equity for immi ramen even if you're not there?
I mean, the only reason would be if they're looking to expand and go global. I think I was having a conversation with someone recently, which was, what is the value of a local strategy in a world where the algorithms can get your content being, you know, you could be posting from Switzerland and you have a load of people in Turkey looking at your content.
Yes.
So it's really, really difficult. But I still believe, you know, there's power in tourism, right? So I can see both sides. But yeah, for me, if I assume and hope that the people following this or seeing themselves in it, because I imagine the people that they're interviewing obviously do live locally, right? So if they hopefully through that, you know, and then sharing it, they'll pick up that local audience. But I think it's really about wanting to find and target people who just want to surround themselves with good people. They're probably not looking for an audience who are like, yeah, you want to live life to the fullest, you want to be super extreme. It's probably just you and your friends or colleagues or family who are just trying to live a nice life, and you can do that. Yeah. But yeah, I do also agree with Sheeza, you know, that it's lovely content, but I honestly didn't know this was for a restaurant. I wrote my notes based on it being a pot of ramen.
Yeah.
So I thought that too.
Yeah, it's interesting. It feels like, not to dish on them because I think the approach is lovely, but I remember when I was at BCP, we used to talk a lot about brand world design. And one of the things that always started becoming clear to me over time is that a lot of brands focus on being quite native to social to the extent that they lose what's recognizable about them. And there are ways you can counter that, right? It's not just put the logo in the first 3 seconds. There's tons of ways of doing branding in a way that's integrated to a very native format. And I guess they tried to do it with some of these, like, you know, the interview is dressed like a pack of ramen, but for the average viewer, it may not be sufficient because all you may see is a feel-good little take or someone just basically dishing poetry, and you don't really know that it's connected to ramen whatsoever. So interesting approach, might need some tweaks for a year or two.
I also just one thing to add to that. I think what's also required is a bit of a long-term game where, you know, they can create a few of these pieces of content and we can go viral, but they would probably have to commit for, like, you know, a longer time, putting in a lot of effort to, like, you know, make them, you know, the associations of, you know, okay, whenever I see this kind of content on TikTok, oh, it's probably going to be from this brand, you know. It's and I think, you know, yeah, it takes a lot of effort and I think a lot of money, and I think that's probably where it goes to, like, a little bit flat, because no one's going to remember these immi ramen videos and associate them as being like the Humans in New York vibe, you know, brand, you know, the comfort feed, the provider of comfort feeds, unless, you know, you make this a consistent thing where, yeah, it becomes like a phenomenon.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. There's definitely a case for distinctiveness being also in the style in which you communicate, but that takes a long time to build. You know, you could probably say, for example, yeah, Nike ads are quite distinct in their style, but that's like 40 years in the making, right? It's a long legacy for you to go, oh yeah, that feels like a Nike ad. So yeah, I mean, hopefully first, hopefully it works for them and they stick to it. But yeah, I tend to agree with you all in terms of it's not obvious that this is well, you know, Berk just proving the point. I also thought it was at first I thought it was a restaurant, but then it turns out it's a product. But the fact it's not clear is interesting. If it's a product, it's similar then to Starface. That the most important thing at the end of this is that the product is recognizable at shelf, and it doesn't feel like that will be as effective here. But, you know, creatively, I think there's something quite compelling in what they're doing. Right, we're nearly done. There's 15 minutes to go. By the way, thanks everyone for feedback so far. Well, if this works, I'll ask at the end if we want to do more of these. But anyway, let's just finish on some quick audience questions that people sent. First one, very practical. How should brands integrate social channels into their quarterly communication strategies? I'm going to ask specifically of like any operational advice, like how do you engage the different teams with each other? Anyone wants to go first? Otherwise, I'll choose Pollyanna or Sheeza, because you've been in-house. You've probably seen a lot of this stuff.
No. I think, well, to be honest, I think when I saw the question, I was thinking, the first thing that came to mind was like, why are we still considering social in a silo? It's 2024, and it's not the testing platform it once was. I'm pretty sure that everyone on this call has got their phone within arm's reach of them. So yeah, it's where the attention is. I think I'll probably maybe let Sheeza speak more to like the operational side. I think I kind of approached it from, just because I've not been in-house for a little while, but I think a sort of quick and dirty way of integrating social a little bit more effectively. I almost have like a slide, which I've had for years. I'll just keep updating it every now and then, but it just has like all of the communications objectives or roles that we're all trying to hit. So it might be like earn attention, change perceptions, nudge purchase. And then underneath just have like all the platforms that match these. And that's not just social, that's like every single channel that all of your team are bought into. So bring in your TV team, your out of home team, like where do you sit on this? And then underneath have the formats. And then I think that just allows everyone to kind of get on the same page. And I get it, you know, it's not perfect. In an ideal world, you know, the marketer or the brand would give out a brief and invite everyone to have an equal say. But I think it's even just to help sort of see that social isn't just this little thing over here that has lots of fun. It's like it can actually inform and influence your comms objectives. And I think yeah, so that's kind of more like have this piece of paper and bake that in. But yeah, I'll let Sheeza jump in on a little bit.
Yeah, similar approach. I think a lot of obviously teams have quarterly updates and reportings where, like, you know, all the different departments and teams come together, and that's a great space to either, you know, share what Pollyanna is saying, like, you know, the objectives and stuff, but also actually to, as a social team, know your shit when it comes to social and share like the latest updates and talk about like the world of social and what's happening in the channels. And that helps people think, oh, I hadn't considered like, oh, this could actually do well from a social avenue, and that sort of stuff. So yeah, using any kind of quarterly, when you guys have quarterly updates and stuff like that to push forward the agenda. Also, just chat to people, even if there isn't anything, just chat to people, network, because that's how I found social gets a seat at the table, is when you start talking to people and paying attention to what they're doing and talking about what you do, and then people are more likely to remember you. So it's a bit of like internal networking, I guess, as well.
Nice. All right. Second question. I'm going to direct it at you, Alexi. How do you structure a deck to ensure clients actually focus on strategy for a minute before jumping to ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe there's like a little bit of a reframe here, which is like, it's more that, you know, maybe you shouldn't be showing both of these things in the same deck. Like, you know, I think it's very, you know, it's very easy to jump straight to ideas if everything's in one document or in one session. But I think it's always a very wise, you know, of course, as strategists, you know, we believe that there should always be an underlying strategy before, you know, unless, you know, there is a specific need for just flash in the pan ideas. So I think the most important thing is to focus on articulating a clear strategy. And I think also just making it clear that having a clear social strategy doesn't necessarily take away time from creating the ideas or narrow the amount of ideas. I think, you know, what tends to happen is if there isn't a strategy in place, that's when brands start to like just sort of aimlessly jump on trends because, you know, this is sort of like the status quo. But if you can find that sort of like that one thing that you want to stand for or provide to your audience, on a deep level, everything that goes into that strategy, what it helps is to create, you can create 100 ideas off of that, but there's going to be increased chance of success, and there's going to be an increased chance that the brands are creating their own trends rather than jumping on, what's already out there. So, I think on a more operational layer, I do think that this is why I was pushed to have more of a step-by-step approach, because otherwise, I think, it's just natural to want to see the output, but actually that you shouldn't be creating ideas until you have a clear strategy in place in the first place.
So split them into separate sessions. Don't try and do everything in one go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On this one, I also just thought having, particularly because I do appreciate, it would be great if we could have 2 sessions. I think sometimes it depends whether you've got a client that you're pitching or you've got a client that's already, on retainer or whatever. But I think it's just all about setting expectations. I think I always start off every single meeting by saying, hey, everyone in the room, I'm going to share with you our thinking, what that means for your brand, and then examples of how that could look more practically. Because I think once you've got the examples, and when you're sharing the examples, include your rationale as to how that ties back to the strategy. But I think also, just don't even use the word strategy. I think it's an incredibly loaded word. And that probably, if you think about, when I put my client hat on and it's like, oh my God, an agency is about to show me a strategy. To them, they're thinking, oh my God, it's 20 pages of research and then a few ideas at the end. So it's kind of like they're keen to jump to the ideas because they're not engaged with the 20 pieces. A lot of the time you end up with people that probably, you get some brands who think that they've already given you the strategy, for example. So I think something that, even that I've carried out recently is I just have on a page a 4-box of 1 line for the category research, 1 line for consumer, 1 line for culture, 1 line for company, and then put the strategy on the next page. And I think it's just setting up those expectations and being super clear with your client or your brand or your manager or whoever it is. I'm going to show you some ideas, but can I show you my thinking first? And then we can have a conversation.
I love a 4 C's framework. That's great. Cool. I had another question that people sent, which was, well, I reframed their question slightly because they were asking, should brands segment their social channels to serve split their social channels approach to serve different segments per channel? The answer obviously is it depends. So my reframed question, and I'm going to ask you, Jaskaran, if you've seen any brands do this well. What are good examples of brands who do focus on specific segments per channel? Have you ever seen anything like that?
You're on mute, Jaskaran.
Sorry, I started. It's very obvious that that very few brands do this, and those who do are very big. But there are few that I think do this. You can have, I think, Just Eat. Just Eat does that with. If you look at their main campaigns that are going on social media, and they are doing all the crazy stuff compared to all the paid social and all the Facebook targeting, you see a difference there. And Puma is very first of all, when we look at Puma, Nike, they obviously have different accounts to do this segmenting, to target different segments, but they are doing it on all of the platforms through different collaborators. You need collaborators to do this stuff. You need to tap into different influencers. And Puma, Nike, Adidas are all doing it. It's just that Puma is doing a different job because they are in F1. That's what I like. On Footwear is also on there. Elf Beauty is obviously a great example. But the thing is, you see how they target different customer segments, not on the big platforms. You don't see them doing that on they're doing different stuff on TikTok or Instagram. That's the same. They're doing different stuff on Reddit. Because all of the new bigger companies, if you take Apple, Amazon, they have all started targeting on Reddit or Pinterest. And another example is the drunk elephant. Their Instagram strategy is very different from how they target on Pinterest, because they know Pinterest is Gen Alpha, Gen Z audience, very younger audience. So they are creating different content. They are creating shuffles, uh, layouts, and different type of stuff on Pinterest to target that younger demographic. And then you have someone like non-profits like RSPB. I saw a question about US National Park. They are targeting a different segments because they know the older people are already donating to them, older people are already visiting them. So they have different approaches on different platforms. First of all, they have a very different social platform, like something like, I think for them, these non-profits and the usual other museums, they have their own social platform, because like they have feedback boards, they have communities, they have the newsletter is also like a social media. So
Yeah.
they segment differently. Like RSPB is doing very brain rot content on TikTok. They do challenges and all that type of stuff. Same with US National Park, they're doing very different stuff on Twitter. But at the end of the day, on their main platform, it's very serious. I think the problem with this question is it is asking about social platform, and every platform is some type of social platform, because at the end of the day, you are interacting. Your brand is not in a one-to-one social conversation unless it's like a live stream. So the main thing is all these brands are doing social through other type of customer segmenting through their websites, through their feedback forms. This is mainly you see this on in B2B tech. If you see B2B tech and usually tech, if you go to subreddits of some big brands, there are moderators from those brands that are doing different communication, because they have to interact differently. They can't just broadcast something to someone on Reddit or their feedback form. So that's where the main difference comes in. And I think I will list the brands that I had here on footwear: Kama app, Refi, Refi Beauty, RSPB, Hayat, the luxury hotel chain, Elf Beauty, Crocs. Crocs is doing very different stuff on that there. And obviously, I think Magic Spoon and few other brands. I'm very bad at recalling some of the brands, so I
You
hope
definitely don't look bad at recalling. I'm like, Jesus fuck. I know you wrote them down, but like that was quite impressive. The variety of brands.
Yeah, also Speedo. Speedo is doing very different stuff. I think we should look at markets instead of like how they are doing stuff on different social media platforms. Look at the market. Speedo USA is very different from Speedo Australia.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Very last question, and then we're right on time. And now I'm going to ask you to think of a one-sentence answer. It's a tight brief, but what's one highly practical thing that people can do to flex their social strategy muscles on Monday when they go back to work? One highly practical thing. It can be spend 20 minutes reading the comments before thinking about your next brief. It can be something else. Who wants to go first?
I can go first. I think the one thing I would ask everyone to do is to look at social accounts, social ads of brands not in your industry. I think it's incredibly important that we diversify our social media diets. Creativity and inspiration, they come together when you smash unexpected things together or you borrow tropes from other categories. You know, at the end of the day, we're in the game of earning attention and driving an outcome. And I fundamentally believe that if you want to be the best in your category, only looking at your own category won't get you there. I think it's about how do you be best overall. So yeah, go and look at a brand. You know, if you're in the FMCG category, go and look at the technology category. Or if you're looking at TikTok and you're going to go and look at Duolingo because you're also a language learning app, then yeah, go and look at a car brand, see what they do.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I would draw on a lot of what we discussed today when we're going through these cases and we're asking like what's the objective and what's the target audience and what are they trying to do. It kind of ties all back to it's not just social. Social doesn't exist in a silo. It's not, if you see social succeed, it's probably not just the social team behind it, it's probably the brand team and the sales team and so forth. So the one thing I would recommend people do is to really dig into the business and go, and to my point earlier, you know, internal networking, go talk to the brand team, go talk to the business team, the sales team, find out what the business objective is, find out what the brand objective is. And our job is to make it more come to life on these social channels. You know, and I think that's quite a thing that happens when we're looking at, you know, social strategy. We tend to just think, oh, this is there's somebody who sat, a social team sat there and done it, and it isn't. It has to be wider than that. And our job is to help educate a little bit more. There's still that lack of education, but also to learn from these teams and see how we can make it come alive.
Great. Jaskaran?
I would say go and post your last social media post in a Facebook group, in a Slack group, in other people's Slack group. You know, maybe post that if you are in Salmon Theory, post your ad in the Salmon Theory. Post your ad in a random subreddit and see how people react. If you get banned, if someone says get out, that's, I think, enough embarrassment for you to go back and rethink your strategy, rethink your content. And that's, I think that you need embarrassment, I think, to do better strategy. Feel embarrassed and you will do better.
I love how brutal that is. Thank you. Alexi?
Cool. I'm going to give a typical cultural strategist answer, which is to practice looking at social trends in a more critical way. So next time you see like this fleeting 24-hour cycle trend emerge on social, you don't have to jump on it, but it's always useful to look at it and understand the deeper underlying motivations and desires, because there is always a deeper story about why people are resonating with certain trends. And if you can understand that, you can practice to engage with that audience in a much more genuine and meaningful way.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. I know we're 2 minutes over. I'm going to wrap this up. If you have questions, if you have requests of which brand you want us to deconstruct next, tell us, because it seems to me from the comments that people would want us to do another one of these. So I'm more than happy to set up a little monthly thing where it's just, let's deconstruct 3 brands with 3 specialists. We do it in an hour. Feels like an hour and a half might be a bit much. So if you have thoughts on which brands we should deconstruct next, please email me or message me on LinkedIn. Go subscribe to Salmon Theory if you want, and if you're not already. Also, because you're all lovely people, I created a little code, and which Berk is plugging, that gives you a 30-day free trial access to Salmon Crew, which is a little private community group where Alexi, Jaskaran, and Pollyanna and Sheeza are active as well as me, as well as Berk. We're all just talking shit every day. So please join that if you want. And if you have love mail, DM our guests. If you fucking hated this, then just tell me. They don't need to know, because I have a reputation to maintain with them. But yeah, honestly, thank you very much for everyone who joined. And yeah, I'll send a recording after. I'll send notes after. I'll send these links after as well, the mandatory plug. And thanks for joining. It was the first time we did it. I think it was good. Hopefully it was good for you as well. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.